Hi there people, welcome to this video. Today I'll be using my Ronin to complete the Curse of the Onibaba story mission in Nightmare difficulty and solo. I am very bad at using the Ronin, so excuse me. I started upgrading my other classes just recently. I usually use the Assassin. And this time I also wanted to show a bit of my Ronin. It's mostly a heal-oriented Ronin, so you'll see that by the perks. The general modifier for this mission is Hellfire, so when the enemies die, after a few seconds they'll leave a pool of burning ground. This can be a bit troublesome, so try to get some distance after you kill an enemy. Also nice, at the start of this mission you can see any class can actually assassinate the base Mongol enemy. This can be very useful during this mission with the Disciples of Io. I'm using the bomb pack with the Ronin and it's a very useful tool. This is a bit of a messy run because I tried many times to do a more stealth-oriented run and it didn't work out very well, so I ended up just giving up and I just tried to bunch the enemies and take them down with the fire bombs and the bombs in general. I think the part that the Ronin excels is exactly that part of sort of trickery. It uses a lot of different tools to help get some advantage against the enemies. The concussion bomb is very good to interrupt attacks, so if you're dealing with an attack that is pretty hard to counter, or it's an unstoppable attack and you can't do much, you can throw a concussive bomb and this will stop the attack. You can also use the concussion bomb to move enemies around, but this is a bit tougher to do, and you can do it to, for example, I do it in the second part. I see that the archers are aiming at me, so I throw a concussion bomb and so I can run and the concussion bomb will stop them from shooting me. It's an interesting thing that depending on what you're doing, the enemies won't see you if you use your concussion bombs to weaken a target and then assassinate. As you can see, I did that with the Disciple and it worked out. Sometimes they pay attention to you and sometimes they just ignore you. It really depends on the situation. I then start bunching up the enemies, and those bears are really tough to deal with. You can jump when they do their first attack, and this will lock them in the animation, but you have to be quite specific with the timing. In this part of the mission, you have 6 enemies before the camp, and in the camp you have around 2 bears. The modifier for this first part is Oni dogs, and you can find quite a bunch of them, but you can find bears and Oni dogs all around this mission. This recording is actually very good to show you that you need to grab the scroll before you talk to the monk, because you cannot pick up the scroll while you're talking to the monk. So don't be stupid like me, get the scroll, then free the monk. Also, very important, at least in my Ronin, I was relying quite a bit on the concussion bombs and the black powder bombs, flash bombs. They're all extremely useful, so always try to grab ammo and refill your ammo when you can. So this way you can use your ammo more frequently, and this will make it much easier. With my setup, I know I can assassinate the disciples by throwing 3 concussive bombs, and then I can assassinate them. So I would highly recommend knowing how much damage you deal, so this way it will be much easier to deal with the enemies, and this can be very helpful when you're dealing with enemies that are inside the Disciples' aura. Talking a bit about the bombs themselves, the black powder bomb is great for damaging groups if you build for some status effect damage and duration. You can get quite a damaging fire effect, and this will be great against groups because at least the weaker enemies, they will be swiftly dealt with. The flash bomb is definitely one of my favorites. You can use it for a lot of tougher enemies, or you can use it for groups of enemies to engage them in a safer way. But an important thing you should know is that flash bombs, and this also applies to the stagger arrow of the hunter, they do not work on bears. On the upside, though, if you deal fire damage and you burn the bears, they will run. So you can't use any of the flash bombs or stagger arrows, but if you burn them, they will give you a moment. My Ronin has quite a bit of things focused for healing. So I have the healing incense, and in the charm I have healing incense duration and range. This is interesting because sometimes you need healing, and I'm not the best melee player, so I can drop this in the middle of a bunch of enemies and I can fight a bit more comfortably. The duration is very good, and the range allows me to move around and still get the healing. I like the perk that gives a bit of healing that you get to your allies. It's very helpful. I mostly use it for survival, but in a mission like this, if you're playing with someone, this can be very helpful. Sometimes in this mission in Nightmare, the enemies deal quite a bit of damage, so sometimes it can happen that they will combo you with their attacks and you'll take a lot of damage. This also happens a couple of times, like when I'm grabbed by the bear and hit by the disciples' attack. So this can take quite a bit of your health, and if you remember, in Nightmare you don't have a choice. If you mess up and you're killed, it's all the way back to the mission selection screen. So you need to be very careful how you engage the enemies. By the way, the modifier in the second part is bears, so you'll find around 2 to 3, depending on how lucky you are. So definitely pay attention to that. The scroll location is in the rocks near the rightmost group of enemies. You just need to go around the rock and you'll find it there. I sometimes forget to show these locations in the video. I recorded this so many times. I am not very good with the Ronin. Anyway, if you're playing Ronin, also remember you don't have a damaging ultimate, so playing with a friend can make it a lot easier, but you can also use the Ronin ghost weapon setup, and this can also make your life easier. I just wanted to show my healing Ronin. The third part, don't forget to grab Gyozen's Curse. You get quite a bit of rewards, and it's not a very difficult curse. I think the Tether Curse is a bit more complicated to deal with. This one is half health, so you just need to pay attention. Of course, you have less leeway when playing, but this is still, in my opinion, the best. This third part usually takes a lot more time compared to the other ones, because this one actually has hostages, and hostages will always make the situation more complicated. Try to take down the disciple and a few guards, if you can, silently, before the enemies are alerted. Once they are alerted, just run to the hostage. The scroll position in this third part, there are actually two possible positions. The first one is in this first house on top. The scroll glows, so you don't need to go up every single time, you just take a look. The second group of enemies is also a bit complicated. The first group of enemies, you have quite a lot of them. In this second group of enemies, the problem here is the line of sight. You have a lot of enemies that are very close to each other, and they are also in each other's line of sight, and this can be very complicated to assassinate specific ones. So I just decide to bunch them up and throw a couple of black powder bombs. You can also use your ultimate if you are almost dying. I have the technique that gives an 8-second heal, and while I'm defending this second hostage, you can also see me using the concussion bombs to reposition the enemy so I can assassinate that commander. This is, again, not something you will do a lot, but it can be done. So if you want to do something cool and you want to practice, you can definitely do that. The second scroll position is in a house near the second hostage. So again, the scroll glows, so you can see it, and then you go up. Just remember that nightmare missions have a fixed position for the scroll and the modifiers, but if you're playing on gold, for example, the scroll can be in various positions. The third group of enemies is actually the most interesting, in my opinion, and also the easiest. This is because they have 3 enemies that always spawn the same, that always spawn in the same place. And these are the 2 dogs. They're just regular dogs. And the archer on top. So the archer on top is just a simple basic archer. And as I said in the beginning, you can assassinate all the basic enemies, the ones that are just wearing like a simple tunic, a simple robe. So you can assassinate that archer. He's very annoying because sometimes he can see you from pretty far. So when you're approaching, pay attention to that. In this third group of enemies, I also show a bit of the flash bomb. You can see that it can keep the Oni it can stop the Oni for quite a bit of time. And this can be very useful for you. I was able to take around half of the Oni Brute's health before it recovered from the stun. So it's definitely a great tool to use. And I have a smoke bomb with munitions. So if you have a smoke bomb with munitions, you can also use the smoke bomb in an appropriate place and use it to get some more ammunition. I'm using the Spirit Kunai. This way I get a bit of cooldown off of everything, so I can use my healing incense more, I can use my smoke bomb more, and so on. I really like the sticky bomb. It can be very fun with the Ronin. You can get blast radius on the bomb pack and on the sticky bomb, and this will bring you to 50%, and you can also get increased radius as a perk, which will give you another 50%, so you can get a total of 100% increased radius, and it can get pretty absurd. It's very funny to use it with fired up against a group of enemies. But again, the sticky bomb has a 90-second cooldown, and that's a bit extreme. The Oni treasure in this is in this third part, and it's near the docks. It's usually guarded by an Oni spearman and a couple of Oni dogs. This way you can plan for the encounter. Don't go on Nightmare with the simplest gear you can find. Just try to get some synergy and you can do Nightmare. It's not too absurd in terms of difficulty, but it's also pretty challenging. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I try to answer all the questions and all the comments, at least the ones I'm notified of. So if you have any questions or any feedback, I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much and see you next time.